Hey everybody,
Hello.
we got an audience here. It's Tony from SunDance Marine in Jensen Beach. I'm sitting here with Sam Heaton again,
Hey,
and we're going to talk some fishing tonight. And hope everybody's out there is doing well, and you've gotten out on the water, and maybe picked up some pointers from us last time. We're going to talk again about bottom fishing, and we've got a little video playing behind us. We did fish last 2 weeks ago.
yeah,
And
before you went to the Keys.
before I went on holiday to the Keys, I went to Key West, which was nice. But we didn't do too well on the bottom, but we did get a nice cobia. Sam did on the flat line, which is one of the things we'll talk about. So how you been, Sam?
I've been great, it's been hot. Whew, been awfully hot. I did last week, I flew to Omaha, Nebraska, and got a new lab. His name's Ranger 11, and we've been pretty much preoccupied with that rascal. But he's a beg your pardon? I have 4 other dogs. Yeah, I got German short hair, English pointer, another lab. I got a lot of them, but some of them are at the kennel, and some of them he's at home because he's so young. But he was 8 weeks when we picked him up. He's 9 today, 9 yesterday, and he's going to be really a good dog. But no, I have been fishing. Mark Nichols and I have been fishing together a lot, and fishing's been pretty slow for us. Now, Mark went one day and waxed them pretty good. I think he had 8 or 9 snook. Wasn't much in the slot. And then I went one day and I had 4, and 2 of them were in the slot. But it's been Saturday. It was a good day. We snook fished Saturday. I had a hard time. It was rough. I had a hard time catching bait, and came back in, and Brian saved my bacon. He had some bait over in his bait pen. He let me have a couple of 3 dozen. 4 dozen, I think, 3 dozen. And we had a good day snook fishing. Had a great day on sailcat. Man, we had a great day on them. Those things, you laugh about the sailcat, but when I'm tarpon fishing or snook fishing, and I get in those sailcat, I'm going to catch some fish. I don't know why they hang out with those snook and tarpon like that.
Maybe it's the opposite.
Yeah, maybe.
I heard the tarpon eat those, don't they?
He's a better man than I am if he can eat one of them slimy rascals. Those things are awful. But, I don't know if it's the same type bait. I don't know if it's the same temperature of water. Another thing I've noticed offshore is when I see a lot of turtles, I'm going to catch more fish than I would if I don't see the turtles. But we caught some nice snook. It was awfully hot. That's one thing we got to really be careful about is being out there. And you and I and Dave and some of the rest of them are used to that sun, that penetrating sun. And this gentleman was a little bit older. Wasn't quite as old as I am, but he was a little bit older, and that sun just cooked him down, man. He's got the shakes a little bit. His son asked him, he said, "Dad, you okay?" He says, "I'm pretty hot," and getting those splotches on him,
Yeah, stay hydrated.
Yeah,
Stay hydrated.
yeah, you got to.
And that's that water gets real warm too, and that affects the fishing.
Yeah, that's I would really like to see the snook fishing back off a little bit. Of course, snooker, they love warm water. They hate cold water, but they love warm water. But the rest of the species of fish, that hot water gets them, boy. I tell you, it gets them bad. But how was the Keys?
Keys were good. They're still there.
Yeah, still there.
Still above sea level.
Still above sea level.
We were down in Key West. It was fun. We got some lobsters, and we did a little patch reef fishing.
Right.
Got some mangrove snapper, and we a little different this year. We didn't have a boat with us, but we made the best of it.
Sure.
It was nice
Sure.
down there. It was super hot.
Yeah, super hot.
Well, last week just seemed to be really hot. I don't know if it was just.
You know, when there's no breeze, the ocean's flat, and you can control. You know, that's one thing about bottom fishing. Is you know what the secret to bottom fishing is? The secret to bottom fishing is to being able to anchor your boat on the hot spot. And you know, people, I see these people anchoring their boat, and they scope their anchor. And you know, in captain school when I went years and years and years ago, they taught you that you needed 3 times the depth of the water to scope your anchor. But the problem is when you have current and you have wind, that boat is going to do this. And you don't stay on that hot spot. So you got to really be able to control that boat and keep it over the hot spot. And if you're not there, if you start fishing out in the middle of the ocean, out in the desert, on the top of the flat, or around them, you're not going to catch much. So it's bottom fishing is really hard. And another thing is a lot of people don't use enough weight. I mean, even on a calm day, I use 8 ounces, especially on a what we call a grouper rig or a 3-way swivel or something like that.
But do you adjust that for depth? I mean, you know, at 40 feet, you don't need. You know,
I use it. I use it. If I adjust it, I adjust it up. I don't care if I'm 60 feet of water. I'm going to use 8 ounces on the bottom bounce rig. You know, with the weight down below the 3. Now on a fish finder rig, I use about 6 ounces. That's the bullet weight. You know, the round bullet weight. But if it starts dragging, you're gonna get hung. So that's when you get hung, when you start dragging around, and you can't. You know, 2 things: it spooks the fish, and it's costly. I mean, you know, 6 ounces of lead now is about $3, so it can be pretty expensive. They say, well, the lead's not good for. There's been lead in the ground since God made Earth. So how can it be that bad? I don't know. You know, God, it's a natural element. I don't know. I don't believe all that about that.
I've never caught a fish on just using a lead for weight, so I don't think they eat it.
No, they don't eat it.
You're using a lead weight for bait.
Barracuda do when you're
Now if it's shiny, you know, and you jerk it fast enough, you can make them strike it.
Yeah. That's another thing. When I'm catching bait and it's rough, the minimum I use is 2 ounces. I really like 4 ounce sinker. Because what happens is when that boat goes up and it goes back down, those fish run around your main line. So if you can keep that weight, keep that line tight, they're not going to run around your main line so much. And when they run around the main line, I see people out there doing this, you know. Hey, cut it off, put another one on. I mean, you're wasting valuable fishing time. And bait's going to cost you something. I don't care if you buy it from Snook Nook. I don't care if you buy it from wherever. It's going to cost you, if you buy it from Brian or you catch it yourself. It's going to cost you something. And so, you know, I don't believe in wasting time, you know. But one thing I did want to talk about, did you have anything you wanted to say about that, Tom?
No, I mean we caught some. The bait was pretty good.
Yeah.
We've got some video behind.
Oh
us,
yeah,
but,
yeah.
But,
It
you know,
was.
I use a regular rod for bait. I don't like to use the you know, those rods that
Shibiki rods.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this.
I'm not a big fan of those either.
They do work to protect the hooks from, you know.
Oh yeah, but I'm gonna tell you those after you use a sabiki rig one time.
The rod, the tube.
Yeah. In that salt water, they rust, and then they break off, and then you miss fish. And I always put a new shabiki rig on. Always put a new shabiki rig on, and I use 4s, 6s, and 8s. That's the 3 sizes I use. I don't use any 2s and I don't use any 10s. I use 4s, 6s, and 8s. And a lot of times that'll make a big difference. I had a guy ask me this last weekend. He says, "What size shabiki rig are you using?" I said, "I'm using a number 4." He says, "The only thing I got is 6s." I, went by his boat, throwed one in there. Hopefully he'll remember me when I don't have a guide trip someday. But, it's catching bait is, and instead of running around out there and looking for everybody else, what I like to do is when I'm catching bait is I got my eyes glued on that bottom machine. I want to catch them. I don't like to run up under another boat to catch my bait. Of course, this last weekend there was the old boat was out there that Captain Bob used to run, my other honey, and they had what do you call those parties that the girls have now when they getting married? A bachelorette party. They had a bachelorette party on there, and we stayed pretty close to that boat. There were some beautiful girls on that thing. But anyway.
I thought it was Tupperware.
A Tupperware party. I don't think these girls were doing much cooking.
They were hot though.
Do what, dear?
They were hot though.
They sure were. I'm telling you what. I had to leave. But one thing I do want to emphasize this week is the importance of that flat line. When we're bottom fishing, we've got a flat line out the back.
At least one.
At least one. And, just because how deep could that cobia, when we hooked him and we brought him up, how deep could you see that fish?
The water was pretty clear.
Pretty clear, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was I saw probably 20, 25 feet down. I could see him
At least,
coming
yeah.
up.
So.
This blue water, we were over by the Loran Tower.
Mm-hmm.
So I just saw the gaff again cracking me up here quick.
Mm-hmm.
Very quick.
He did a good job on the gap, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to let you talk about that, what we were talking about a while ago. And I've got a couple of things I like to do about gaffing a fish. If I can, I will. But anyway, so those fish can see. Just because that bait's 5 or 6 feet deep, I don't think those fish can't see it. So, I like to have that flat line out there. At least, like you say, at least one. And it'll make a lot of difference.
Well, anytime you're over structure, there's fish you're going to have fish in different levels, in different columns,
Sure.
right? So,
Sure.
And again, temp, water temp has a part in that. If it's super
Mm-hmm.
hot at the top, there might not be a whole lot of fish. It's just like when you're out, in deep water, if you're trolling, a lot of times you don't get anything. But if you pull up on a big weed patch, even then the fish aren't there, but they're down maybe 100 feet. They might be down there. A lot of guys will drop baits down, live baits underneath the big weed lines or underneath some floating pallet or whatever you find out there floating around because the water's just too hot.
Yeah, exactly.
At the top.
They're not going to stay. Well, I hate to say that because I do see a lot of schooling fish out there. But
have you seen any of has anybody here seen any of the upwelling this year? I haven't.
Oh yeah, I've
Usually
seen
that's a west wind kind of thing.
We were on the how do you pronounce it? Ockaluna. Ockaluna Bank, and they had a huge upswell out there, and we had to leave. We come back into Bethel Shoals and caught some muttons, but they had a huge upswell out there.
It was cold water.
Yeah, cold water, and I don't know what the cold water actually is heavier than the warm water, so it looks like the cold water would sink, but I think the current pushes that cold water back up, and and you have the upswell. But when that water gets cold like that, nah, I don't fish it. Maybe I make a big mistake, but I don't fish it.
We've had some years where it's right up near the beach.
Sure,
You know?
sure. Let's talk about that gaff a little bit. I don't know. I guess you folks could see the when we gaffed that fish, and we had one of the folks in the audience here ask us about: do you place the hook down, or do you place the hook up? I gaff with my hook up because I want to come up from underneath that fish. I don't want to hit at him with that gaff.
Right.
You know, I don't want to hit at him with it. I want to come up and get him like that. And once I get that gaff in him, I want him to come on then. Because they will spin off that gaff. I've had a lot of fish spin off a gaff. But one thing you did that I really liked when you gaffed that fish was you gaffed that fish in the head area. That keeps that fish. I'm going to tell you something. Next time you catch a kingfish, look at them teeth he's got. You catch the worst accident I have ever seen on a boat. We were in Costa Rica, and we caught a big wahoo. That wahoo was as long as that couch right there. Big one. I mean, 60, 70 pounds. And the mate, and I had a large gentleman on the boat. It was on a corporate trip. And the mate had gaffed him in the back half of that wahoo. In the back section. Well, when he picked him up, the fish come up, and he was just doing like this. And the guy was he was fat, okay? He was fat, kind of like me. And when that fish swung around, it bit him right in the stomach.
Wow.
It bit him right in the stomach. Well, come on in, son. How you doing? You got a package? Thank you so much. Been hot out there today, hasn't it? Take care of yourself. And part of his insides popped out through the hole. And
Okay.
I mean, we were in Costa Rica, and we were about 65 miles south of Panama. And I laid him down. You know, of course, the captain made a beeline for Gulfito, where the hospital was. And I laid him down and actually took a towel and pushed what the insides were back in his stomach, and then took another towel and wrapped it around him and as tight as I could. He wasn't bleeding much, but you know, I was afraid he'd have what do you call that when your insides get dirty and they put
Septic.
septic. And I was afraid he'd get septic. Of course, I'm sure they cleaned him up when they got to the hospital. I hope they did anyway. But that was the worst accident I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen a lot of hooks and people get hit with them. One thing, people are reeling, they're really pulling on that rod, boy. They're really pulling. They got that thing bent like that, and that rod breaks or that line breaks, and that first eye hits them right here in the face. That's a stitch. I guarantee.
So gaff the fish, try to gaff them from the front portion of the fish head.
The head region, if it's all possible.
The other thing is you want to be a little patient. And sometimes people will get, I'm not, by any means, I didn't make a living gaffing fish.
Mm-hmm.
But, you've got to wait, because there are a lot of times I've seen it happen where you go to gaff a fish and the fish moves or whatever and it's too deep and you get the line, you hit the line. That can break the fish off, it can pull the hook. So you need to be cognizant of that. But if you're patient and the fisherman who's reeling that fish, you gotta tell him where you want that fish. Once he gets that head under control, you get that head out of the water. That's the better time. You got to get control of that fish first before you can get the gaff on him. Because if he's still green, he's got a better shot of getting away from the tip of that gaff. So
Yeah, you got it.
I typically want that. I'm not a big guy, so I want that fish fairly close so I can get down under it and get it up one one lifting up and over. So
Yeah.
you know, everybody's going to do it differently, but you know, you just got to know that nobody's behind you. You know, get it up and in the water. Kingfisher and wahoo, they're different.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anytime you bring them in, you got to be careful because
It's
they're
just like somebody throwing a running chainsaw in the back of that
yeah.
boat.
I've
You
seen-
got to
I've
really
seen
be
a lot of
careful.
people get cut from them. It's
Yeah.
not hard, too.
Yeah.
Just
How
always,
many times have I heard a big cuss word? Gaffed him, gaffed him. And I said, well, he ain't up here yet. And I like at least a 6 foot gaff. Them little bitty short gaffs like that right there. No, they're not gonna work. I mean, they might work, but if you gaff the wrong, like gaff the barracuda or something halfway down with that little short gaff about like that, and you gaffed him that far back, guess what's gonna happen? He gonna bite you, and they will bite you. All of them will. They bite, protect themselves. So you got to be careful. What else do we need to talk about? You know, anybody? Has any of the rest of y'all been fishing?
No, but I have a question.
Okay.
So you brought it up before, and it was something I was thinking about. You brought it up in the beginning about using a three-way when you're bottom fishing.
Swivel.
What necessitates you from using a three-way to just using the fish finder with the egg sinker? What's better?
depending on, so what type of rig to use.
You
Some,
brought it up, I wanna know what makes a difference. I mean, I have like a pole rig for each, and I wanna know what necessitates the use of one or over the other on a particular day.
Yeah. When do you use a bottom bounce rig? When do you use a fish finder rig? When do you use a
Well, they're using the
Knocker.
three-way swivel,
Knocker.
they're fishing on the bottom,
Uh-huh.
using a three-way, because you have the
Yeah.
safety line your hook.
some guys will use the you know, the bottom rig, and you don't have to go to the bottom with it. You know, they'll have 2 or 3 hooks on it, and you can fish at you know, different levels of the fish column. You know, guys will get these beeliners and stuff like that with that type of rig.
We're using the three-way swivel, what makes you wanna use that?
Well, when I'm using a bigger weight and a longer leader, the longer the leader I use, that determines whether I use the bottom bouncer rig or not. Because what happens is if I'm anchored up and I'm bottom fishing and the current's running north to south, okay, or south to north, let's say, it don't make no difference, but south to north. First thing I'm gonna do is throw that bait out. Because I may have a 12, 15, even a 60-foot leader. My muttons and mangoes love that long leader. They love it. But if you're not careful, if you have a long leader like that and you try to drop it down with a bullet weight or something like that, it'll swim around your line.
So when you do that, you wanna have a little bullet weight over by the hook with
No,
the
sir.
bait?
No, sir.
No, oh,
No, sir. You want him to swim around. But put your bait out, let him float back, and then put your sinker in and drop it slowly to the bottom.
the length of the leader is what tells you if you're gonna use just an egg sinker.
Pretty
or
much,
a line,
pretty
or
much.
you're gonna use a three-way.
Pretty much.
Perfect.
10, 12-foot leader, anything that long, I'm going to use a lead on the
So
bottom.
targeting a mutton, you're gonna lean towards a three-way, because you're gonna use a much longer leader.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes,
Describe
sir.
how you do the three-way. So you have your main line,
Yeah.
and then what?
I got my main line tied to I look at my 3-way swivel, I tie the main line to the top, the lead to the bottom. The lead to the bottom, and then the leader out the side. Now, let me say this. When I'm using a bell sinker, which is the big ones, you know, the heavy ones, I always tie to my 3-way, and then I tie a big loop knot. The reason I tie the big loop knot is so I can change the weights out without having to cut it off.
How
Okay.
much line do you put off of that three-way for your sinker?
About like that,
Couple feet.
about 12 inches.
Okay.
Yeah, about 12
Do you
inches.
use a lighter leader for that in case that gets hung up and you don't?
You know, yeah, you can do that, and but like I say, that lead's expensive. Yeah, I want to get it back if I can. You know,
It's easy, it's just a re-rig of the
It's
sinker,
a-
re-rig the whole rig, that's it.
Yeah, the price of the trip's the same if you use,
Much as the sinker.
if you use $5 worth of lead or $30 worth of lead. It's the same price to me. So, and then I like that fish finder rig. You know, I don't use the one where I don't use a lot of where the lead slides all the way down to the hook.
Knocker rig.
Knocker rig. I don't use those much. No, some people swear by them, but I don't really like them that much.
I use them. I did quite well with that rig right at, for snook.
Yeah.
Now it's not a super heavy weight.
Yeah.
I'm using a live bait, and I just want that weight heavy enough to get that bait down closer to where those fish
Yeah,
are.
but you got these fish out here trained, these snook.
Well, I mean, it's, yeah.
We come back in the other day at 12 o'clock. He caught 4 before I could get my stuff out of the boat.
Now, when you do that, the knocker rig, are you putting that sinker on the bottom?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm letting that weight go down, and that bait's typically going to be. So if you're
It goes
using
through
live
the
bait,
sinker so it can move around.
it can. And usually, again, I do it with snapper too, and I usually don't. I usually want that fish. With snapper, it's a little different. I might use a little heavier weight, and depending on what I'm using, because with snapper you want that line to go out if you're fishing a little bit of
Right.
current. If it's a live bait, that fish will have the ability to kind of control that weight a little bit. He's not going to be pinned to the bottom, right? So you want him to be able to swim away from the weight.
Yeah.
And it's on the leader. So, that's the thing. The weight's on the leader. Now, I usually don't use a swivel. Typically, I'm tying a knot like an Albright or uni to uni for my leader, my braid to leader connection. If I'm using a knocker rig or a fish finder rig, then I'm going to use probably a swivel. That will keep the weight off the leader.
And on that knocker rig, when that weight hits the bottom, the bait's right here. Well, as the boat is moving, I feed the line out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did
Usually,
you-
you want to be, and if it's a live bait, you want to be able to feel that bait swimming.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to just open the bail and let it swim on its own. You want to give it the line, and as you're feeding it, you want to be able to feel him swimming around, and you'll know based on that activity. It's easier to do with braid because it's more sensitive.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to feel that, and then you'll feel. I mean, it's pretty. Once you feel, if you're fishing for snook, you know when that fish eats it because it's one big thump, and usually then you've got him. If you're using a circle hook, all you got to do is lift up, and you pretty much are going to get him. I don't know if you teach your clients how to do that when you fish for them. You use snook, you use circle hooks.
Yeah, I use circle hooks. Always. I always use circle hook. And no jerking. These guys that's bass fishing, bad deal. I get on them too, man. I have try to make a fun thing out of it, but I'll tell them, man, a jerk waiting on a jerk is not going to work. So I like to just, especially with braid, I like to just start reeling. And once you get the fish, once you load the fish up, then you can raise your rod up a little bit. But this things where you flip the bait over the top of the boat, that'd get me going pretty quick. And get me going
Any
pretty
other
quick.
questions?
No, that was good, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna do some more fishing again next month, or this month for the next month's show. We're gonna probably do a little bit of the same.
Yeah.
So if there's anything, we'll get some more video. Haley's been really good about fishing with us and getting some really good video. And
She's a good stick. She's a good sport too. So
it was a little slow last.
It was
a couple
slow,
weeks ago.
yeah.
We were down
It
at
was slow.
Moran Tower. We didn't get a whole lot, but I don't know if it was just we had live bait. We had we didn't have a trolling motor, and we didn't use
that was
the
another
anchor.
thing.
Typically, we would have a trolling motor, and we'd like to do it that way instead of putting the anchor down. It's a little easier.
It's a
'Cause
lot
we did mark
easier.
some fish, and we just weren't able to stay on. And the current was blowing pretty good.
And that new 83, 82 inch trolling shaft, huh? 87.
There's an 84,
80.
depending on,
Dakota's got an 87.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rodan's got an 84,
That's-
and
You know, did I tell y'all that story about that trolling motor shaft? When I begged them to build longer trolling motor shafts.
you told us.
I told us, and that guy said, "Well, if you hit the trolling motor, it'll come back and put it and hit the bottom of the boat." I said, "Son, you know, you may be an engineer, but you ain't very smart. You can push a rope up a hill and you won't go very far."
Have you guys all been fishing? Have anybody caught anything good?
I was out there with
I
you
haven't
that
been
day.
out much at all.
Do what, son?
No, so
You-
I haven't been out there,
You haven't?
no.
What?
I was out there with you that day at Ernst when you guys were out there after we got the bait.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was too much, so I went out and got dolphins.
Did you
Yeah.
get
I
some?
had a bunch of kids on board, so you guys
Yeah.
saw them running back in and out. They got
Yeah,
seasick.
Yeah.
Knocked them off with grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't run out too far. We were just gonna try and get some bottom fishing in.
Well, the further you go south,
Deeper.
the deeper it gets.
Yeah.
On the same, you can run south on the same lat line, and it gets deeper. You know, because the ocean swings in closer to the shore. You know, that's one reason I like going down to around Loran and those places down there, because it gets deeper quicker. And I put that old Ranger through a lot of misery. And it really appreciates it when I don't beat it all to pieces.
But being so flat, it's been good dolphin fishing because you can sight fish.
Yeah, yeah.
You can see them.
Have you gotten any decent sized ones or?
Yeah, 30 inches, nothing major, but for this
Yeah.
time of year, that's
Yeah.
a good size fish.
That's a good size fish.
Like 8-10 pounds.
Live bait or artificial?
Live bait.
Live bait.
Yeah, looking for structure, looking for shit floating. I found a buoy floating out there
Mm-hmm.
just north of Push Button.
Mm-hmm.
Put 10 of those in the bowl.
So that's
that day.
Yeah, that's great.
Just
that's about what 400 feet, 4 to 500 feet,
North of Push Buttons, about
350.
Yeah,
so
two.
north of it, but on the west side.
yeah. I like Push Button early in the year because them blackfin, they hang out there, boy. You could do well with them babies.
All winter long.
Yeah, all winter
Well,
long.
that's for our winter show.
That's for our winter show.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Hopefully, we'll have some more.
I
boats.
hope I'm still able to do a winter show. I'm getting pretty old and feeble. But, it's, we live in a great part of the world. It's just, well, I don't want to get political, but let's just stay on our congressmen and stay on our representatives and stuff about keeping our ocean and our rivers clean. I don't understand that there's so many people that want to ruin what we have. It doesn't make sense. If Florida didn't have fishing, it'd still be a damn swamp. Excuse my language, but fishing is, and these people, I love to play golf too, but I'm not very good at it. But, golf, but fishing is the heart of Florida. And we have to protect our waters and our beaches. We just have to. I'm not voting for no one. I don't care if he's George Washington himself. I'm not voting for him unless he's environmentally conscious. I'm just not going to do it. We got a good one in Governor DeSantis. I just hope he stays in Florida and don't try to go to the White House.
All right.
What else? Anybody got it? Yes, sir.
I just installed a trolling motor on my boat.
Yes, sir.
So I have the anchor. Now, when you have a fish finder, do you want to be on top of the reef, or you want to go further away so that the line actually?
Well, you got to take in consideration current. That current is a big thing. Of course, you want to be up current from it, but when you hit spot lock, that way when you drop back, you'll be over
Instead of going back.
over the structure, because that structure means everything. And I'm going to tell you, what kind of fish finder you got on the boat? It don't matter. You got a fish finder?
Yeah. Well, the fish finder, it's a Garmin Eco Finder.
Garmin, good unit. I don't use one because I'm not smart enough to know all the controls, but
Either do I just see some things moving, I'm like, okay, that's gotta be fish.
Yeah.
It could be weed, but I'm still gonna go for fish.
But watch that depth finder, man. If there's not fish on that structure, there's plenty of places to go, and there'll be fish somewhere. And if you run out of spots, like we've talked about before, you use a home port chart, or go to the not in fisherman, Florida Sportsman's website, and they're all listed on there. Some
Yeah,
good
when you
ones.
get to a spot, up current is obviously you want to be there because when you drop your bait down, it's going to go back to that spot. So what I like to do is I like to run over it a couple times and see, make sure what I'm looking at it kind of
Where
matches
it is
what's
and
on the
stuff.
chart. A lot of times, you'll actually see the structure and you're not sure if it's fish or just the actual structure that's down there. There's lots of different stuff out there. Barges and concrete and tires. There's all kind of stuff out there. So a lot of times you'll show some relief and it's hard to tell. You got to be able to. You can fine tune that machine to show you that actual what you're looking at. And then when you see the marks off of that main structure on the machine, that's the fish, right? So you're going to see a big kind of a home for a sort of odd shaped piece on the bottom, and then you'll see the fish around it. Some will be up high in the column, but that's where you want to kind of circle around a couple times and then head, into that current. And as you see it drop off, that's when I'd put my trolling motor down and hit that spot lock. Or you can have it down already, just idling, that current out there, sometimes it's almost too much for a trolling motor. It
Anything
really
over
does
3
blow
miles
up.
an hour is too much for a trolling.
But it'll help you, and then you can, once you hit that anchor feature, and get them baits down. If you don't get anything, if you think you're in the right spot and you don't get anything fairly soon with live bait, you can try some some cut bait or something like that too. But if you're fishing and you think you're on the right spot and you're not getting anything, go to the next one. There's a lot of stuff out there. You can run from place to place pretty quick out there, and especially on the 6 mile. There's a net ledge out there, and there's lots of little marks that are on the standard charts. You don't even really need to know any
But
secret
the only
spots.
problem is that, what I found out is, since I can stop the boat, basically it just locks it. Then I start seeing boats coming my way. So at first I thought, my thing doesn't work, I was gonna go. Then everybody's looking at me like, what the heck are you going into our lane? And then I start seeing that these boats are coming, but I'm actually locked. They're the ones actually moving with us.
Exactly.
At the same, of course, speed.
Oh,
Well, there's
they're-
a concept with that.
they're-
If
Yeah,
you drift, when you drop, your line doesn't come up. If you anchor, right, and your boat's not moving, but the current's moving, if you don't have enough weight, your line's gonna come up. Versus if you drift with it, it's easier to keep your line down. Correct
You'll
or
see
no?
guys drifting out there. It's really it's kind of courtesy. If you know the guys are out there and they're drifting, you just gotta kind of deal with it. A lot of times I don't. If there's more than 1 or 2 boats on an area, I'll go somewhere else. I don't want to mess up somebody. Sometimes there's a dive flag out and you don't know where those guys are, so I don't mess with that. I just find another spot. There's too much out there to have to deal with other boats.
The current moves so fast that I've noticed. I mean, they could be so far away, and all of a sudden they're just 5 minutes later.
Yeah.
Right
Well, a lot
across.
of people will drift that. There's areas out there where you have structure after structure after structure, and if you set your drift right, you can drift over them, one after the other. And there's fish swim all in that area, so people will drift live bait in there. You can just drift like Sam and I were doing. That's what we were doing up on this video.
Yeah.
We didn't have the anchor out and we didn't have a trolling motor on the boat, so we were just finding it up current, put the baits out, and then drift as long, until we knew we were off of it. And we try to get into it. There was an area there that's had a bunch of marks, and we figured out the drift, and we went as far south of it as we could, and then put all our baits, deployed our baits, and had the bottom baits, and then drifted through as many of them as we can. We didn't hit all of them because they're not all in a line, but we were in the general vicinity of all of them. So
What do you like to use outside of the live bait and actually just tossing it down?
we were using live bait. I mean,
Live bait.
I'll use cut bait. I don't mind having, if I've got a fresh dead one, cut it, cut the tail off of it or cut it in half, depending on,
What about
the depth.
squid?
I like the head.
You can do squid.
Squid's good.
A lot of those middle column fish, like the beeliners, the snappers that school up, they'll eat those cut pieces.
I got one more
Larger
tip
the better.
that I want to share with y'all. Talking about structure. Okay, we got current coming from left to right. Okay, this is my structure. The stronger the current from left to right, the more fish will tend to suspend on the down current side of the structure. That make sense?
They have to swim less.
Have to swim less.
Yeah, it's easier.
Yeah, there's an eddy created in
You're
there.
right.
No, I was
And the
a
smoke definitely do
schooling
that.
fish would do that, and the grouper would hang out front. Is that not true?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest. I don't catch enough grouper to even know. Only thing I catch is them big Goliath grouper, and you can't do nothing with them. I mean, you can't keep them, you can't land them.
Grouper fishing out here is tough.
Yeah.
Some of these guys, these captains here, that target them, Pat Price, some of these other guys that really know how to do it. It takes a long time to figure that out. I've been out there with a couple guys, and they have marks that there's nothing on the chart, and it's like they found these spots, and it could be just a little relief, 2-foot ledge or something, and they found it, when they were sail fishing or whatever, and they mark it. Those guys that spend a lot of time on the water out there, they usually know what they're doing. When the grouper season opens up, they can get them. So if I always recommend, hiring one of these guys if you want to learn about how they do it.
But they won't give you their numbers.
No, you don't need
No.
don't bring a handheld. We'll be trying to steal their numbers. Just go out there and learn the techniques and see how they do it, because it takes a long time to learn it. But the fish are out there. They're tough to catch here.
I'll tell you a good place for grouper is the Halsey. The Halsey out in 125 feet of water. That's a good. The thing about, and I got no problem with people fishing like they want to fish, but the problem with anything less than 100 feet is the spear fishermen. They'll pick them all off of there. So if you get past 100 feet, unless they're driving with nitrics, they can't stay down there that long. And
Free diving, I've never seen anybody do it, but there's some guys that can do it.
well, not me. I float like a big balloon. I mean, if I had to go 10 feet, I got a big story about that. I'll tell y'all sometime about nearly drowning up here in the North Fork.
Well, we're running out of time, so
Okay.
we'll save that story.
Okay.
So we're going to finish it up for Facebook, but I want to just say to anybody that is watching us out there, come see us at SunDance in Jensen Beach. We're getting new inventory in. Come say hello to us. We've got Parker, Everglades. We have Regal. We've got what other boats do we have? We're not at Sea anymore. But we've got our pontoon line, which is Marletta. They're really nice, they're really impressive pontoons. They're tri-tunes. But yeah, our service department. We mentioned doing trolling motors for some of our customers. We do have some in stock. I think we still do. So come see us and say hello. Just pop in. Sam's here sometimes. You might catch him here.
I'll be glad to talk, and I do that better than I fish now anymore. So, but I will say this: if you're gonna buy a boat, I don't care what size it is, how big, how small, buy it from a reputable dealership. How many heartaches do I hear about people buying a boat somewhere else and the thing sinks, or they don't put any silicone around the bolts and the motor? I mean, buy it from a reputable dealer. And you know, I trust these guys. I trust these guys with my boat. And, you know, please don't buy from those jackleg guys. I mean, they'll say anything, you know.
Thank you, Sam.
Well,
Appreciate
see y'all
you being
next
here.
week. Next month. Sorry.